tech side of industry. There. Maybe I could go more detail later on. I don't want to go too shabby.
Alright, hey guys, I'm Adi. I work with the HGR Digital Asset Group. HGR is basically an actively managed hedge fund with an investment thesis that focuses on value investing and engineering research. So basically, at the moment we try and directly invest in publicly traded crypto assets and cryptocurrencies, but we look at ICOs and other blockchain related securities as well. I can go in more detail as well later on, but essentially I'm a junior analyst at the moment with the investment team.
Once again, my name is Mark Pereras. I'm the co-founder and CEO of PearlPay. And basically our advocacy is to onboard the hundreds of rural banks. If China has UnionPay and India has RuPay and Japan has JCB, Japan Credit Bureau, the Philippines has PearlPay.
Hey guys, this is Chris, one of the founders of PDAX. So like I mentioned earlier, we're launching a investing platform for people to buy and sell cryptocurrencies like Bitcoin, but also later on digital assets that kind of roll out later.
You know who I am.
You're the tokenizer.
No, they already heard me. Mike, I'm here to try and make all you guys go cashless and make the Philippines a better place.
Before we start, I just want to make a quick comment that Lina's talk earlier. I hope you can hear me clearly. Lina's talk earlier really set the tone for this presentation or for this panel talk because I think that really inspires the audience. I think most of the audience, correct me if I'm wrong, most of you are students or because it gives us an encouragement that you don't have to be an expert to actually do something on blockchain, and we're very early. And because we're very early, everyone can really participate and collaborate and be part of this movement that we refer to as blockchain or the decentralization movement. So at this point, I just want our panelists to perhaps comment on the situation here in the Philippines. Could you briefly describe the industry in the Philippines and where we are at this point? And then maybe later we can talk about what our audience can probably contribute. Basically, the situation of blockchain industry here.
Most people are getting into blockchain because of the idea of making money on the cryptocurrency. You know, they see people making a ton of money out of ICOs or raising money, gambling on cryptocurrency, Bitcoin, etc. So that leads people into blockchain, and then they start learning about what else they can do with it, which is cool. In the end, at the beginning of the internet, or when it started becoming popular in the early 90s, same thing happened. You know, people were getting into, what can we use we can use it for email or sending, well actually it was porn. Porn was one of the biggest use cases of the internet, so that one led a lot of people onto the internet, and then they go, we can use we can build our own websites on it, we can do other things. So here it's money, which is it's important, and now it's going to lead people into other aspects of blockchain, which is cool. And these are the guys that can actually build stuff.
Mark can actually really comment on this because he's been in this space and you're an OG, you're an old gangster. Yeah, he's been in this space, so you can really see the developments from like 2012 when there was no action, 2013 there's few meetups here and there, 2014 we had Coins.ph, SCI starting, then about 2015, well, it's bear market, 2016, we see new companies like Bloom Solutions and so on and so forth. So you can really see this, and in 2017 you saw a lot of action with regard to people being interested more on investing rather than contributing to the development.
These guys are all so young compared to me. I've been in the IT business since 1988, and that's well before these guys were born. So anyway, I'll pass it on to you.
How about who can share their insights on what you can see, how the Philippine market is evolving so far as blockchain is concerned?
Sure, yeah. I think I can probably give a perspective closer to some of you guys. So essentially, I got involved with blockchain and crypto space as a whole maybe 2 or 3 months ago, and it takes around 6 months of proper reading to really understand the space, speaking to thought leaders, hearing what they have to say. And of course, I think as Ralph mentioned, 2017 was really this up year for crypto space as a whole. And yeah, exactly. And mid 2018 now it's starting to be a bit more of a bear market. But in the Philippines especially, the awareness is really picking up on crypto and blockchain, and you can see here a lot of people here are interested in Bitcoin and cryptocurrencies as a whole. And it's really nice to see that, especially from my perspective as well, because there's a lot of people to talk to, and at AGR we do believe that this is the future in terms of where tech is heading as a whole. So I mean, yeah.
No, but that's really interesting because even though it's bear market right now, you can see really a lot of action on the ground.
Yeah,
like
exactly.
people are really building stuff, infrastructure. And since we mentioned about bear market, not many few people could probably understand what do we mean by bear market relative to bull market.
Sure, yeah. So the bear market basically means that, okay, I mean, there's two sides to the coin, right? So there's a bull market and a bear market. A bull market in simple terms basically means that the market is flourishing. And
Like
bear market
2017.
means that, yeah, exactly. A bear market basically means that it's not necessarily in a downwards trend, but it may be flat at the moment, for instance. Yeah. Just a rough overview of what it means.
Maybe Chris, some insights on that. It's also interesting that you're doing your stuff here in the Philippines. You could be somewhere else, but you're here in the Philippines. So it's interesting to really learn what are the opportunities that you see here.
So one of the big opportunities for blockchain here in the Philippines is to bring more traditional assets that you guys are probably already familiar with into the digital world and accessible, right? So how many of you people, show of hands, have invested in real estate? One? How did you invest in real estate? You bought a house, exactly. So the only way that you can actually invest in real estate in the Philippines is if you buy the entire property, right? But with blockchain technology, you don't have to necessarily do that. So you can actually take this entire building, you can take iAcademy and put the ownership of this building on the blockchain and then sell ownership the same way a company issues stock, sell ownership of this building to investors. So now you have an opportunity as just an average consumer that doesn't maybe have enough money to buy an entire property, you can buy pieces of an existing property. So now the blockchain gives you access, all of you, everyone on the street, to just take the 200 pesos in your pocket, for example, and start investing in real estate. And that's something that's very powerful that only blockchain can enable.
Spark, how about you? Any insights?
Yeah,
What do you see in the Philippines right now,
Yes.
where we are heading?
Okay, for the blockchain industry, I mean, actually most of us are basically startups, but based on a recent interview, we interviewed one of the top executives of the top 5 banks in the Philippines, and now they are now preparing themselves, adapting to the blockchain technology. And one of the executives, when we interviewed this executive, you know what, Spark? For the past 6 months, we just studied how the OFW remittance, and a big chunk of our OFW remittance are coming from the Canada market. And basically for the Canada market, of course, we don't have branches there, so we do tie-ups with the Canadian banks. And of course, we employ third-party clearing house. The third-party clearing house are the middlemen. That's the reason the banks, on the average, according to World Bank, we charge on the average about 11% for OFW from Canada going here to the Philippines. Now, but blockchain resolved that by simply eliminating the third-party clearing house. Because it allows a peer-to-peer from as explained by our good friend Chris earlier. So now it's not just for the startups, but it's becoming a mainstream as of today because big banks now are basically adapting. And one of the big banks as well, as aforementioned, the Bankers Association of the Philippines comprises of 41 banks, 20 domestic, 21 foreign banks. Basically, they want to implement the blockchain-powered digital banking ID. We've done with one of the top banks. They wear the color of blue and gold because we do some POC, proof of concept, with them to how to implement the digital banking ID facility. So, I mean, sooner or later, across all verticals, I mean, we're going to use blockchain.
Richard, how about you? Maybe you could talk about also this so-called blockchain hype that we are, or according to some people, we are experiencing right now. I'm not saying that there's a hype, but some people say that there's a hype. Maybe you can comment on all of this.
So I actually came from a marketing background. I just recently joined the tech industry a year ago. So prior joining the tech industry, I was in a telco company. And for me to really transition into the tech space, I did a lot of market research and I wanted to understand what the sentiment of blockchain is in the Philippines. So I opened up my laptop, I went on Google, I typed in blockchain in the Philippines, and there's just a whole roster of Facebook pages that came out, right? Different communities within the Philippines talking about cryptocurrency Philippines, different blockchain space, Facebook groups popped out. And I really looked into the groups and I saw how engaged Filipinos were, specifically not only talking about cryptocurrencies, which is most of the sentiment online, but they were also talking about blockchain in specific and how the technology could revolutionize or help the Philippine community. So fast forward 1 year later, me and actually most of the people here are actually engaged in the blockchain community, specifically in Manila. And we're seeing a big boom in the interest of people really immersing themselves in these different meetups and different events. And the cool thing about it is you'd think like these would be like, let's say like more advanced people who are maybe like 10 years into the space. That was my sentiment going in, but like really seeing it now, it's really the youth, people say 17 to 30 years old, majority that really focus on the space, male and female alike. So for me, that's something exciting, even if people are still trying to understand what blockchain is, the sentiment is there. And for me, that's something to be really excited about.
I do agree. That's really exciting. How this technology actually levels the playing field. Like you don't have to be an industry veteran or an expert to actually do something here. As I said earlier, you just have to be diligent and just be really interested and study this, and then take part and be part of the community where information are being shared with everyone and where people network. If you're looking for a job, you might be able to learn that this company, this startup is actually hiring. And Lina earlier was talking about these various jobs that are being searched for in the blockchain space. So our subject today is about building blocks. I think it's about, when we say building blocks, you can talk about how infrastructures should be built here in the Philippines for the Philippines to become a blockchain-capable country. There's a lot of talk about positioning Philippines as a blockchain hub. And if you will consider the fact that our neighbors are also positioning themselves as a fintech or financial technology hub, or as a blockchain hub, or as a crypto hub, whatever you want to call it. But obviously, there's that positioning that this is, if you want to do something about blockchain, this is where you go because the talent is here, the government is supportive. So our neighbors are also doing something that our government is doing. But for the Philippines, there's really no problem. It's if we want to dream to become that crypto valley or to become that blockchain hub. But I think that this is something that we need to understand really in terms of the reality. Where are we at this point? Maybe if we talk about our dream to be a blockchain hub, we are here. But in terms of the infrastructure that we have built so far, we are still here. And you can see this gap over here. That these companies, these startups are working on. But the good news here is it's not just these guys who can actually do something here. Our audience here, the students in this room could actually take part and be able to solve all the problems that we're trying to solve here and build that infrastructure and maybe realize that dream of making the Philippines a blockchain hub. So let's talk about how to build the infrastructures. What are the things that we need at this point to really enable the Philippines to become that blockchain hub? Any comments? You want to start, Mark?
We need you guys. It's so easy to get into blockchain programming now. I mean, me personally, I've got an online university where we offer free courses. So if you want to learn, it's all free. So if you want to learn Ethereum programming and stuff like that, there's a lot of resource material out there. You've got guys like, you got Stellar blockchain, which you can download and start. You don't have to be really technical, but you guys are already getting into it. So yeah, so start building small things or connecting to chains like us. We've got Nem over there, they can tell you how you connect to their blockchain. There are lots of these different flavors that you can play with, see which ones suit what you want to do. But keep in mind, you are programmers, but keep in mind there has to be some kind of solution in the end, you know, what problem you're trying to solve. So you can understand and build on some of the tech stuff, but also try and think of the just normal business stuff. You know, I know you're a bit young to get into business ideas and stuff, but try to think of that. It's not just technical. Try to think of things you might solve with it.
So I definitely agree that there needs to be that level of education and that there needs to be that level of interest. I think speaking on the interest side, so a lot of you guys probably don't know that much about blockchain, maybe aren't super interested even, but I think what you have to look at is, let's take the internet for example, right? When the internet came out, we had no idea where it would go, right? We just said this is a really cool new technology, and then let's figure out how we can build applications of the internet, right? When the internet came out, did anyone really predict that we'd have Netflix? Did anyone predict that we'd have Grab or Facebook, right? And these are all applications that we use every day. And that's the really exciting part about blockchain, right? All the examples that we gave earlier on use cases for blockchain now, these may not be the coolest applications that come out 5-10 years from now. So for the folks that are interested or are on the verge of, you know, learning a little bit more about blockchain, I definitely encourage you to take some of the classes, talk to thought leaders, talk to other friends that are really interested in blockchain, because what makes it so exciting is that it's so new. We have no idea what direction this industry is going to go in, but we know that from a technological perspective, it's a very powerful tool. So I definitely encourage you guys to research a little bit more. If you're already interested, take it to the next level, start reading up more, talk to your friends about it. I think as Lena mentioned, there's no degree for blockchain, right? After 6 months of reading, you guys can be, you know, just as smart as us, right? And that's the cool thing about the industry. You don't have to follow this very strict, rigid protocol or process to kind of get to a place where you can start coming up with really cool applications of the technology.
So, well, for me, basically, I'm just going to share my personal story. Back in 2014, because I really wanted to learn blockchain, so I read this is a great book. It's called Mastering Bitcoin. It's for developers. Who among here are computer science or computer engineering students? All right. So I mean, I highly recommend that book by Andreas Antonopoulos. And then right after reading it, I reached out to the experts. Back then, actually, I reached out to Erica Valerio from SEI Group because we were schoolmates back in high school. So I asked her, hey, I'm really interested about this blockchain, and I know this is an open source community, and please educate me what's the real score here in the Philippine market. And then, today now I'm speaking all together, with attorney Rafael and with the SEI. Thanks to Erica. So that's the key. Reach out to those people who are knowledgeable, and there is a lot of online tutorials nowadays for free. Capture it in via YouTube, and that's my personal story. And basically, I'm just sharing it with you. So yeah, thanks.
Yeah, guys, with regards to improving infrastructure and creating really this quality base, it does start with really educating yourselves and understanding what crypto and blockchain is. With regards to really expanding your interest on crypto, there are direct correlations with the applications, right? So yeah, you have Facebook for the internet. Just like that, you have something called decentralized applications or dApps, which we use in the crypto space, and you guys can research on these. And they are things like games, for instance, which you guys might be interested in. And that's really how you start. You start building like a knowledge base and interest in crypto, and then you expand your horizons to other things like a tech stack, for instance. And optics is huge, and that's what Mark was mentioning as well. Just this idea that, yeah, you might understand coding well enough, but you kind of have to expand to be able to understand business as a whole and marketing it. And really, that's how you begin refining your hypotheses with thought leaders and building a proper quality vehicle in terms of crypto as a whole.
I would encourage you guys, if you guys are really interested in learning about blockchain, cryptocurrencies on the side, I suggest you guys check out meetup.com. There are a couple of events that are hosted almost on a weekly basis that are free. Not only are they free, there's food. So if you guys are waiting in Makati for traffic and you genuinely are interested in learning about blockchain technology, there are a couple of groups on meetup.com. You can approach us later and we can get you connected. Outside of that, there's a space that we're also promoting that encourages communities to meet together and talk about blockchain and cryptocurrency. If you have a Facebook, you could type in blockchain space Philippines shameless plug. So yeah, it's a free group, and we try to host events as often as possible to encourage people like you to learn more about blockchain and hopefully getting encouraged to join the space after education.
I just want to mention that, okay, your coders are going to have fun. I mentioned you should understand business principles, etc. But has anyone heard of CryptoKitties? Yeah, well, it's a bit of fun. You can, if you want to, think about a Filipino version of that. I mean, CryptoKitties, for those who don't know, it was created about 8 months ago, and basically you're creating digital assets on the blockchain that allow you, that represent cats, and you can breed them against each other to make more cats, and you sell those. And I think what was one of the latest CryptoKitties sold for just under $1 million. Think about that. This is something. So if you can come up with some craze in the Philippines to buy and sell something that's very Filipino, then yeah, it's going to be some fun. But you guys are going to come up with this. You guys are the millennials. So are you millennials? Are they millennials? Yeah. So come up with something, play around, learn the technology, come up with some ideas, and it's not all boring money and that stuff that we're dealing with.
Guys, there's a lot of talks about the blockchain right now being hype. So we're trying to encourage very clearly, one of the objectives of this conference is to inspire, encourage students to study this, right? And find opportunities for them. These are opportunities that you yourselves will have to discover. But there's a lot of talk about this being just a hype. As I've said earlier, I don't necessarily agree. But maybe we can clear that because it might not be fair for our audience here, most of them are students, to actually to spend time, effort, energy to study this. And eventually it's just a hype. That tomorrow we won't have blockchain anymore. I'm not saying I don't